Welcome to the world of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy the listening. The old space station floated silently above a forgotten planet. Its metal walls were rusty, and the lights flickered like dying stars. Jake, a lone human scavenger, moved carefully through the dark halls. His boots echoed on the cold floor. He was tough, with rough hands from years of fixing broken ships, but his heart was kind. Jake searched for anything valuable, old tech, wires, or machines to sell on the black market. This station, abandoned for decades, was his last hope to make some money. The air was heavy, thick with dust. Jake's flashlight cut through the darkness, showing broken pipes and shattered screens. He muttered to himself, "Come on, something good has to be here." His ship was low on fuel, and he needed a big find. The station felt alive, though, like it was watching him. A strange hum filled the air, low and steady, making his skin tingle. Jake turned a corner and froze. A faint blue glow came from a door at the end of the hall. It wasn't like the station's dim lights. This glow was alive, pulsing like a heartbeat. He tightened his grip on his tool bag and moved closer. The hum grew louder, vibrating in his chest. The door was heavy, sealed with strange symbols he didn't understand. Jake wasn't one to back down, though. He pulled out his pry bar and forced the door open with a loud creak. Inside, the room was small and cold. In the center stood a glass cage, glowing with that same blue light. It wasn't just glass, it shimmered like liquid, held together by some unknown force. Jake stepped closer, his breath catching. Inside the cage was a girl. She looked young, maybe 20, with pale skin and strange silver markings across her face and arms. Her eyes were closed, and her body floated slightly, like she was asleep in water. Her clothes were torn, and she looked weak, like she hadn't eaten in years. What are you?" Jake whispered. He'd seen a lot in space alien tech, wrecked ships, but nothing like this. The girl didn't move, but the hum from the cage grew stronger. Jake's head ached, and he swore he heard whispers, soft and far away, like voices in a dream. They weren't words he knew, but they felt sad, scared, and hopeful. He shook his head, trying to clear his mind. "This place is messing with me," he said. He circled the cage, looking for a way to open it. The glass was smooth, with no buttons or locks. Strange energy pulsed from it, making his flashlight flicker. Jake's heart raced. He'd heard stories of aliens trapped by cruel empires, but those were just tales, weren't they? This girl was real. She was trapped, forgotten by everyone. Jake's hands shook as he reached out to touch the glass. He didn't know why, but he felt like she needed him. The moment his fingers brushed the cage, a shock hit him. Blue sparks flew, and Jake stumbled back, cursing. His hand burned, but he wasn't hurt. The hum turned into a loud buzz, and the lights in the room flickered wildly. Jake's eyes locked on the girl. Her head twitched, and for a split second, her eyes opened. They were bright, glowing like stars, and they looked right at him. Fear, pain, and something else, hope, flashed in her gaze before her eyes closed again. Jake's heart pounded. "Okay, you're alive," he said, his voice shaking. He didn't know who she was or why she was here, but he knew one thing: he couldn't leave her. No one deserved to be locked away like this, forgotten in the dark. He looked at the cage again, his mind racing. The whispers in his head grew louder, like they were calling him. Was she doing that? Or was it the cage? He stepped back, gripping his pry bar. "I'm getting you out," he promised, though he wasn't sure she could hear him. The station groaned around him, like it didn't want him to try. The hum from the cage grew angry, and Jake felt a chill. Something was wrong. He glanced at the door. Was something watching him? The shadows seemed darker now, moving in ways they shouldn't. Jake took a deep breath and raised his pry bar. He didn't know what would happen, but he wasn't leaving without her. The girl in the cage was counting on him, even if she didn't know it. As he swung his tool at the glass, the station shook, and a distant sound, like footsteps, echoed in the hall. Someone, or something, was coming. Jake stood in the glowing room, his pry bar tight in his hands. The glass cage hummed, its blue light pulsing like a warning. Inside, the alien girl floated, her silver markings faint under her pale skin. Her eyes had opened for a moment in part 1, staring at Jake with hope and fear. Now, she was still again, trapped in the strange cage. The distant footsteps Jake heard grew louder, echoing in the dark halls of the abandoned space station. He didn't have much time. He swung the pry bar at the cage. A loud clang filled the room, but the glass didn't crack. Instead, blue sparks shot out, throwing Jake back. He hit the floor hard, his tools scattering. The cage buzzed angrily, and the air felt heavy, like a storm was coming. Jake cursed under his breath. "This thing doesn't want to break," he muttered. But he wasn't giving up. The girl needed him. He got up, brushing dust off his jacket. The footsteps outside were closer now, heavy and slow, like something big was coming. Jake's heart raced. He grabbed a small plasma cutter from his bag. It wasn't much, but it might work. He turned it on, and a bright flame hissed out. The cage glowed brighter, as if it knew what he was doing. Jake pressed the cutter against the glass. Sparks flew, and the hum turned into a scream. The whole room shook. Suddenly, the girl's eyes opened again. She pressed her hands against the inside of the cage, her face full of fear. Jake felt a strange pull in his mind, like someone was whispering without words. Pain. Hope. Help. He didn't know how, but he knew it was her. "Hold on," he said, his voice steady despite the shaking room. The plasma cutter burned hotter, cutting a small line in the glass. The cage fought back, sending shocks through Jake's arms, but he didn't stop. With a loud crack, the glass shattered. Blue light exploded outward, and Jake ducked as shards flew past. The girl fell to the floor, gasping. She was thin, weak, her torn clothes barely covering her. Jake ran to her, kneeling beside her. "Hey, you okay?" he asked. Her eyes, bright like stars, looked at him. She tried to speak, but her words were strange, like a song he couldn't understand. The station groaned, and red lights flashed. Alarms blared, loud and sharp. Jake's stomach dropped. Breaking the cage had triggered something. The footsteps outside stopped, and a low growl came from the hall. "We need to move," Jake said. He helped the girl stand, her body shaking. She was light, like she hadn't eaten in years. "I'm Jake," he said. "What's your name?" She tilted her head, as if listening to his words. Then, in his mind, he heard a soft voice. "Lyra." It was her. Jake blinked, confused. "Did you just talk in my head?" he asked. Lyra nodded weakly, her eyes wide. She touched his arm, and flashes filled Jake's mind, images of a war, a cruel empire, and Lyra locked away because of her powers. She could control energy, and they feared her. The memories were blurry but full of pain. "We're not safe here," Jake said, pulling her toward the door. Lyra stumbled, her legs weak, but she held on to him. Jake felt something new, her trust. It made him want to protect her even more. He grabbed his bag and led her into the dark hall. The alarm screamed, and the station's lights flickered wildly. Jake's flashlight showed broken walls and wires, but something else caught his eye, a shadow moving at the end of the hall. He stopped, pushing Lyra behind him. The shadow was tall, with glowing red eyes. It held a device that beeped, like it was tracking something. Jake's blood ran cold. "They're after you, aren't they?" he whispered to Lyra. She nodded, her face pale. The device's beeps grew faster, and the shadow stepped closer. It was a figure in dark armor, a bounty hunter, cold and dangerous. Jake grabbed Lyra's hand and ran. The hall shook as more alarms went off. "Stay with me," he shouted. Lyra's telepathic voice whispered in his mind again. "Danger. They want me back." Jake didn't know who they were, but he wasn't letting them take her. He pulled her into a side room, slamming the door shut. The bounty hunter's footsteps followed, slow and steady. Jake looked at Lyra, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "I'm getting you out of here," he promised. But the beeping device was close, and the door wouldn't hold for long. Something was hunting them, and it wasn't giving up. Jake pulled Lyra through the dark halls of the abandoned space station, his flashlight bouncing off broken walls. The alarms screamed, their red lights flashing like angry eyes. Lyra stumbled, her legs weak from years in the glass cage, but she held Jake's hand tightly. Her glowing eyes flickered with fear. The bounty hunter's beeping device echoed behind them, closer now. Jake's heart pounded. They had to get to a ship before the hunter caught them. "Keep moving," Jake whispered, guiding Lyra around a corner. The station was a maze of rusty pipes and shattered doors. He knew every step could be a trap. The floor shook as something exploded far away. Breaking the cage in part 2 had woken the station, and it wasn't happy. Jake glanced at Lyra. Her silver markings glowed faintly, and he felt her voice in his mind again. "Danger. They won't stop." Her words were soft but heavy with fear. "Who's they?" Jake asked, ducking under a fallen beam. Lyra's eyes closed for a moment, and more images flashed in Jake's mind. A vast empire of tall, cold aliens with sharp faces. They locked Lyra away because she could control energy, a power they feared. She was part of a rebellion, a spark of hope for her people, but the empire crushed it and left her to rot. Jake shook his head, trying to focus. "Okay, you're special. That's why they want you." Lyra nodded, her breath shaky. "They hurt my people," she said, her voice weak but clear, speaking in broken English now. "I was, weapon." Jake's chest tightened. She was just a girl, not a tool. He squeezed her hand. "Not anymore. You're with me now." A loud hum filled the air, and a drone flew out of the shadows. Its red eye locked on them, a laser charging. Jake pushed Lyra behind him and threw his pry bar. It hit the drone, sparking as it crashed into the wall. "Run," he shouted. They sprinted down the hall, but more drones appeared, their lights scanning. Jake's scavenging skills kicked in. He grabbed a loose wire from the wall and yanked it, sending sparks flying. The drones fizzled and dropped. Lyra stared at him, amazed. "You, brave," she said. Jake grinned, despite the danger. "Just human," he replied. That's what made him different. Humans didn't give up, no matter the odds. He led her through a narrow tunnel, hoping it led to his ship. The station groaned, and the walls creaked like they might collapse. The bounty hunters' beeps were faint but still there, tracking them. They stopped to catch their breath in a small room filled with broken screens. Lyra leaned against the wall, her face pale. "Why you help me?" she asked, her voice soft. Jake looked at her. "No one should be caged. Not you, not anyone." His words were simple, but they hit Lyra hard. She'd never known kindness, only fear. A small smile crossed her face, and Jake felt her trust grow. The moment broke when a loud bang echoed. The bounty hunter was close. Jake peeked out the door and saw him, a tall figure in dark armor, his face hidden behind a helmet. The tracking device in his hand glowed, locked on Lyra's energy. He moved like a predator, calm but deadly. Jake's stomach twisted. This guy wasn't just a hunter, he was built to kill. "We need to move," Jake said, pulling Lyra toward a service ladder. They climbed down, the metal creaking under their weight. The ladder led to a docking bay where Jake's ship waited, a small, beat-up scavenger craft, but it was their only way out. The bay was dark, with old crates scattered around. Jake's hope rose. They were close. But as they reached the ship, a shadow moved ahead. The bounty hunter stepped into the light, blocking their path. His helmet's red eyes glowed, and his device beeped louder. "You can't run," he said, his voice cold and mechanical. Jake pushed Lyra behind him, gripping a wrench from his bag. He wasn't a fighter, but he'd protect her. Lyra's hand touched his arm, and her voice whispered in his mind. "I can help." Her markings glowed brighter, but she looked weak. Jake shook his head. "Not yet. Save your strength." He faced the hunter, heart racing. The ship was so close, but the hunter raised a weapon, its barrel humming with power. The docking bay doors shook as a new sound roared, a bigger ship approaching outside. The Empire was coming. Jake grabbed Lyra and ran for his ship, the hunter's weapon charging behind them. They had seconds to escape, or they'd be trapped forever. Jake's ship roared to life, its engines coughing as it lifted off the docking bay floor. Lyra clung to the co-pilot seat, her glowing eyes wide with fear. The bounty hunter's sleek, black ship loomed outside the station, its weapons glowing red. Jake gripped the controls, his heart pounding. "Hold on tight," he told Lyra. The old scavenger craft shook as it shot into space, dodging a blast from the hunter's ship. The chase was on. Stars streaked past the cockpit window, but Jake had no time to look. The bounty hunter's ship was fast, closing in like a predator. Warning lights flashed on Jake's dashboard. His ship was old, patched together with spare parts. It couldn't outrun the hunter for long. "Come on, girl, don't fail me now," Jake muttered, patting the console. Lyra watched him, her silver markings glowing faintly. She was weak but trying to stay strong. The hunter fired again, a laser grazing the ship's wing. Sparks flew, and an alarm blared. Jake swerved, diving toward a nearby asteroid field. "If we can't outrun him, we'll outsmart him," he said. He steered the ship between giant rocks, twisting and turning. The hunter followed, his ship scraping an asteroid but not slowing down. Jake's hands were steady, his scavenger instincts sharp. Humans didn't give up, and he wasn't about to start. Lyra's voice whispered in his mind. "I can help." Her markings glowed brighter, and she raised a shaky hand. A faint blue shield formed around the ship, blocking a laser blast. The effort made her gasp, her face pale. "Don't push yourself," Jake shouted. "You're still weak." Lyra shook her head. "I must," she said, her English slow but clear. "You saved me. I save you." Jake's chest tightened. She was fighting for him, just like he fought for her. The shield flickered, and Lyra slumped in her seat, breathing hard. The hunter's ship fired again, and Jake dodged just in time. The dashboard beeped, fuel was running low. Jake cursed under his breath. They couldn't keep this up. He glanced at Lyra, her eyes half closed but still glowing with determination. "You're tougher than you look," he said, forcing a grin. Lyra smiled weakly, and Jake felt a spark of hope. They were in this together. A new shadow appeared on the scanner, a massive Empire ship, closing in fast. The bounty hunter wasn't alone anymore. Jake's stomach dropped. "They really want you back," he said. Lyra's face darkened. "They fear me," she whispered. "My power can stop them." Jake frowned. "What kind of power?" Lyra touched his arm, and images flashed in his mind, Lyra creating shields, blasting energy, stopping ships. But each time, it hurt her. Jake shook his head. "No way. You're not dying for this." The Empire ship fired a warning shot, rocking Jake's craft. The hunter's voice crackled over the radio, cold and sharp. "Give up the girl, human. You can't win." Jake ignored him, weaving through the asteroids. He wasn't a soldier, but he was stubborn. Humans always found a way. He spotted a tight gap between two massive rocks. "Hold on," he told Lyra, pushing the ship into a dive. The hull groaned, but they made it through. The hunter's ship followed, but the Empire ship was too big, slowing down. Lyra's hand gripped Jake's arm. "I can stop them," she said, her voice stronger now. Her markings glowed like fire. "But it might kill me." Jake's eyes widened. "No. You're not sacrificing yourself." He didn't know why, but Lyra felt like family now. He couldn't lose her. She looked at him, her glowing eyes soft. "You care," she said, almost surprised. Jake nodded. "Yeah, I do. We're getting out of this alive. Both of us." The scanner beeped again, the Empire ship was closing in, and the fuel gauge was almost empty. Jake's mind raced. He had one last trick, but it was risky. The asteroids were dense here, full of unstable rocks.
If he could lure the hunter in, maybe he could trap him.
But the Empire ship was the real problem.
Lyra's hand tightened on his arm.
"Jake, let me try," she said. Her voice was firm, but her body shook. She was ready to use her power, even if it meant the end. Jake looked at her, his jaw tight.
"Not yet," he said.
"Trust me." But the Empire ship's shadow grew larger, and the hunter's weapons locked on. Time was running out, and Jake's plan was their only hope or their last mistake. Jake's ship rattled through the asteroid field, its engines coughing as fuel ran low. The bounty hunter's sleek ship chased close behind, lasers flashing.
The massive Empire ship loomed on the scanner, its shadow growing larger.
Lyra sat beside Jake, her silver markings glowing faintly. She was weak but ready to use her energy powers, even if it killed her. Jake gripped the controls, his jaw tight.
"No way you're dying today," he told her.
He had a plan, and humans were good at beating the odds. The asteroid spun around them, jagged and dangerous.
Jake's eyes scanned the field. He needed a trap.
"Hold on," he said, steering toward a cluster of unstable rocks.
The hunter's ship followed, firing again.
A blast hit the wing, and alarms screamed. Lyra raised her hand, her markings flaring. A weak blue shield blocked the next shot, but she gasped, slumping in her seat.
"Stop it!" Jake shouted.
"Save your strength." Lyra's glowing eyes met his, full of trust. She nodded, letting him take charge. Jake spotted a huge asteroid, cracked and glowing with strange energy. It was perfect. He pushed the ship's engines hard, dodging lasers as he flew straight toward it. The hunter followed, too confident in his fancy ship. Jake's old craft groaned, but he smiled.
"Come on, you want her? Come get her."
At the last second, he swerved, scraping past the asteroid. The hunter wasn't fast enough. His ship hit the rock, and a massive explosion lit up the stars. The hunter's ship spun, damaged but not destroyed. The Empire ship was still coming, its weapons charging. Jake's fuel gauge beeped, almost empty. He looked at Lyra.
"We're not done yet," he said.
She whispered in his mind, "I can stop them." Her markings glowed brighter, but her face was pale.
Jake shook his head. Not alone. He had one last trick.
He steered toward a dense asteroid cluster, hoping to lose the Empire ship in the maze of rocks. The ship was too big to follow easily, but its scanners were locked on Lyra's energy. The hunter's damaged ship fired again, weaker now. Jake dodged, but the Empire ship launched drones, small, fast, and deadly. They swarmed like insects, lasers cutting through the asteroids. Jake's hands flew over the controls, weaving through the chaos. "Humans don't quit," he muttered, his heart racing. Lyra watched him, amazed. His courage gave her strength. She touched his arm, and her voice filled his mind. "Together." Lyra raised both hands, her markings blazing like fire. A burst of blue energy shot from her, hitting the drones. They sparked and fell, disabled. But Lyra cried out, collapsing. Jake caught her, his stomach twisting. "Stay with me," he said. The Empire ship fired a massive laser, and Jake barely dodged it. The asteroid field was their only cover, but fuel was gone. The ship slowed, drifting. Jake's mind raced. He saw a narrow gap between two asteroids, a risky path. "One last shot," he said. He pushed the ship into the gap, engines sputtering. The Empire ship followed, too big for the tight space. Its hull scraped the rocks, and sparks flew. Jake grinned as the Empire ship slowed, stuck in the maze. The hunter's ship limped behind, too damaged to keep up. Jake's plan worked, human wit beat their tech. Lyra stirred, her eyes dim but open. "You did it," she whispered. Jake helped her sit up. "We did it," he corrected. With the enemies trapped, he set a course for a nearby human colony, using the last drops of fuel. The ship limped to a green planet, landing in a dusty field. People ran to help, their faces kind. They welcomed Lyra, offering food and a bed. She looked at them, then at Jake, her eyes wide.
This, home? She asked. Jake nodded, smiling. Yeah. You're free now.
Lyra's eyes glowed softly, and she hugged him. You, my first friend, she said, her voice breaking.
Jake's throat tightened. I'll visit, he promised. You're not getting rid of me.
The colony's lights glowed under the stars, and Lyra smiled, safe at last. As they stood together, Lyra's gaze turned to the sky. Her voice whispered in Jake's mind.
My people, still out there.
Jake looked at her, his grin back.
Then we'll find them. Together. The stars twinkled, hinting at new adventures.
Lyra was home, but her story and Jake's was just beginning.